Hey guys, it's me, Ethan, your New York-based organization development coach, and I'm back. I know it's been a very long time since I've done one of these spotlight videos showcasing an amazing company with a great culture, but I figured it was time. So let's just consider this video a little pre-election 2024 version in which I'm going to do a deep dive. I'm going to try to do justice to one of the most venerable technology companies, not just in America, but in the world, Microsoft Corporation. So get ready, buckle in. I'm going to go pretty quickly. I want to get this video out in time for me to go focus on the election, but I have been seeing a lot in the news of late about Microsoft Corporation and most specifically its consistent drive to reinvent itself through building an amazing culture. So, how did this happen? How did all of a sudden Microsoft come back into the spotlight for being one of the baddest ass, greatest places to work for tech professionals and other folks? So, we're literally, as we talk about the nearly ubiquitous global adoption of ChatGPT and AI. We're talking about not just key players in the space, but wannabe new technology companies. And all of a sudden, there's Microsoft right in the center of things. So let's dive right in. Let's go back a few years to 2019. So we're on the cusp of the most exciting and disruptive wave of technology humankind has ever experienced. And we're talking about AI and ChatGPT. You've seen it everywhere. But we're also talking about a company, Microsoft, who a lot of folks, let's be honest, going back to pretty recently, didn't think was relevant anymore. And what enabled Microsoft to insert itself back in the center of discussion about those companies that have the most influence in the future of technology, in the era of AI, it's because Microsoft exerted considerable influence in transforming its culture. So I want to just start out by saying acknowledging that culture is the key building block of an organization, stated its CEO, Satya Nadella, that he changed Microsoft's culture in a way that made current and potential customers feel that Microsoft cared about their success. And so there's this roundtable that got together in Munich. This is from an article 2019, Lessons in Cultural Change by Tim Spriggs, and talk about Satya Nadella as the CEO who came on board back in 2014. So we're in 2024. So after a decade in that role, I want to kind of go back a few years. The new Microsoft culture understands that the core of the business must be a natural curiosity and desire to meet a customer's unarticulated and unmet needs with great technology, and that having a deep sense of a customer's unmet and unarticulate needs, that's why the growth mindset culture matters. And so that's one of the things that, interestingly enough, CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, focuses on is individuals and organizations collectively having a growth mindset. So Forbes, that he reported to Forbes, the customer centricity and external focus became increasingly important at Microsoft during its culture transformation during CEO Satya Nadella's tenure over the last decade. So shifted a mindset first with Microsoft employees through powerful communication, training, and the necessary people changes, particularly in the sales organizations who were at the cold face of the organization. Customer feedback, for pretty much the first time since Bill Gates and Steve Balmer started the company, customer feedback was listened to early and often throughout the life cycle, product development life cycle, and customer groups were included in product training. I can't just begin to tell you how powerful this is, that an organization of the magnitude, tens of thousands of employees in existence decades, realizing that its very future was dependent on change, but still implementing the transformation needed. So, how did Microsoft do this? As a result, we don't just value differences, we seek them out, we invite them in, said CEO Nadella. As a result, our ideas are better, our products are better, Our customers are better served. From a diversity perspective, Microsoft have a drive to represent the outside world. Look, when your internal organization collectively, its people, reflects the external environment of your company culture, there's a greater likelihood of creating a culture that resonates inside and outside. Some of the ways that we did this included e-lessons on unconscious bias, the 1 week hackathon initiative. It's a week where employees and interns from across the company come together to create, innovate, and hack on ideas that light them up. Kind of like Google's old Blue Sky initiative, where they give each employee 1 day a week to focus on work and ideas and problem solving outside of their given work area. Most impactful was a strategy to ask new recruits with MBAs to run the company meeting. You want a fresh new perspective? Have the fresh new smart people take the lead. The leadership put trust in the energy of the organization, and we were more in observational mode. This generated some interesting social impact projects within the organization. One Microsoft, the concept of a One Microsoft is focusing on moving away from silos and instead allowing employees to become more connected. I talk about this a lot, right? When we move away from that 20th century pyramid command control structure and become a flatter matrix organization, there becomes a need for employees to be truly successful at performing at a high level. They need to have access across the organization, especially on project-driven teams. So there can't be silos. You can't have that. In a great place to work, organizations understand employees to drive projects forward and be given the autonomy to drive initiatives. They have to be able to pick and choose based on prior experience. Who are the best people to build a team around to solve a problem with the greatest amount of problem solving force? So this is a central tenet of Satya Nadella. So you join here, as he says, not to be cool, but to make others cool. This is complete re-architecting of Microsoft's culture around certain core values. And so what are those core values through leadership over the past decade with Satya Nadella? It's creating clarity of purpose, synthesize the complex, ensure understanding, and thus define a course of action. Generating energy. There is nothing that's more vital to the livelihood and success of tech-driven companies than the notion of a collective, collaborative spirit, a positive life force. We call it to be Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, a Hungarian immigrant to the United States, referred to this as being in flow. And also delivering success. If you think about what Microsoft historically got stuck in, they were a phenomenally powerful company, introduced the personal computer, and then rested in their laurels for decades. And when Steve Balmer, a sales guy, took over, he drove to maximize sales, often at the detriment to R&D and innovation and creative problem solving. So delivering success in terms of getting back to Microsoft's root success, going back to 1975. Okay, so that's the framework on this. I want to just kind of give you a starting point. So how did Microsoft go about a reboot on its culture? And as I rush through this video, I do want to make clear that I believe there's significant lesson learned for organizations, whether you're concerned that you've become a dinosaur, you're stuck, you no longer have relative value, to those that are in hyper growth mode, to even those that are just starting out. These lessons on focus on culture can be applied universally, is what I'm trying to say. So here's the point. We've all heard of Microsoft. We've heard of it. It literally in the 1980s became, its operating system became embedded in personal computers and allowed it to take over a dominant control of the personal computer market space. So by the early 90s, they had already sold over 100 million copies of their operating system. So they were the kings, right? In the early 1990s. They reached 1 million in revenue by 1978. And so if you kind of fast forward that to the early 1980s, you think about $1 million in sales from 1978 to the early 1990s. So let's talk about this. In December of 2000, Microsoft had a market cap of 510 billion. It was the world's most valuable company. By June, 6 months later, in June 2001, it was number 3 in market cap with 249 billion. So its market cap was effectively halved. And so you look at its competitor, Apple, during that time frame. December 2000, they had a market cap of 4.8 billion. Didn't even make the list at that time. Going forward in time to June 2001, Apple was number 1 in the world with a market capitalization of 541 billion. So what happened in 6 months between December 2000 and June 2001? In just 6 months, you saw a flip-flopping of success. But here's the question that I posed for you in terms of Microsoft now. It's a Microsoft video assessment. In 6 months, what happened? How so quickly did it lose its focus? And the answer is, in retrospect, pretty simple. No matter how successful your business is at any stage of your life cycle, every organization needs to focus on its purpose. Let me say that again. You and your organization cannot lose clear focus of what your central purpose is. Known as being at the front of innovation, a lean competition machine led by young visionaries and giving competitors a run for their money, Microsoft suddenly, after its initial success in the early to mid 1980s, became suddenly bloated and filled with bureaucracy. So at the dawn of the millennium, there was a major culture shift at Microsoft. No one talked about that. Bill Gates gives up control. He brings in Steve Ballmer, as we talked about, and Steve Ballmer had more of a corporate sales culture background and the shift in focus. There was a new focus at Microsoft on revenue over innovation under Steve Ballmer. Perhaps it came from his history of background in sales. Balmer took a culture that was based on technology innovation and excellence, and he re-architected it to focus exclusively on revenue. And to be honest, here's one of the lessons learned. When organizations focus strictly on revenue and profitability, you will lose. You will lose. It's not a question of if anymore. We know this. It's just a question of how long it takes you to implode. So what happened was Balmer took this culture of innovation, shifted it to a focus on sales. The mindset change meant that employees are now focusing, back in the early 2000s, on proving how their product was increasing revenue instead of how their product was improving the lives of its customers. That is a kiss of death for organizations. It caused, as a result, this shift in focus and purpose, a lot of internal competition between coworkers, resulting in strained relationships. And here's the kicker, less collaboration amongst individuals and less collaboration amongst groups of individuals, teams. The system had a corrosive effect on employees. What was that shift in focus under Steve Ballmer? It was a focus on stack ranking. So let me explain what stack ranking is. It's a practice where managers rank their employees on their performance. Employees at the bottom are often placed under performance review or see ya. And that just creates so much toxicity and so much destructive negative force to an organization. That's how the decline starts. So what it led to was, instead of encouraging collaboration, a lot of brilliant employees did everything they could to avoid working alongside other top-notch developers out of fear that they would be hurt in their rankings. I mean, you can't do this. You can't do this. So sure, under Steve Ballmer's guidance, Microsoft had a fair amount of success in terms of profitability and achieving revenue potential. But you couldn't say that about the culture. And this is where the decline of Microsoft's culture really snowballed. Balmer emphasized competition and defense of one at the expense of others, at the cost of collaboration within the company. And it created just a lack of focus, a lack of purpose, and a stagnation. And so that's what Microsoft was contending with. After 14 years of leadership from 2000 to 2014, Balmer handed over the reins to, as I've mentioned previously, its new CEO, who's been in this role for 10 years, Satya Nadella, who's believed to be the best thing that ever happened to Microsoft since Bill Gates left to pursue philanthropic endeavors. So why was Satya Nadella a good choice for resurrecting or transforming Microsoft's culture? He came with a new vision. He came with a new mindset. He created and emphasized a culture that focused on giving its customers the products they wanted and needed instead of banging out Windows-based products that were projected to have high revenue potential. What a mind blow. What a shift in focus back to its core early days culture. The culture shift has improved how all talented people at Microsoft focus their time and energy and effort, going from competing with one another internally to collaborating to performance-focused reviews on innovation. Before Nadella, during Balmer's reign, there was no such thing as trust at Microsoft. You cannot instill a high expectation of performance and productivity in your people if they don't trust one another. Users didn't feel connected to the products, and therefore they were not eager to buy them. Nothing kills innovation and adoption of new products and services if your customers don't believe that you have their vested best interest at heart. And that is a proven statement of success. Okay, so here's what Satya Nadella has to say when he describes himself as a leader. Many who know me say I am also defined by my curiosity and thirst for learning. I buy more books than I can finish. I sign up for more online courses than I can complete. I fundamentally believe if you're not learning new things, you stop doing great and useful things. Holy crap. Talk about that as a core value for an organization led by a truly transformational leader, which is what we're talking about here. Nadella has been transformational at Microsoft, bringing it back to relevance. What does a modern day Microsoft look like? It finds its values and culture rooted in two essential places, really the only two places that matter for you and your business: your employees and your customers. The new culture he implemented going back to 2014 encourages learning, trying, and failing. You know, imagine what it would feel like in your organization if your employees not only felt comfortable failing, they saw it as a critical precursor step to learning and evolving. This shift in focus from Balmer to Nadella has made employees at Microsoft excited about developing themselves, enthusiastic about learning new things outside of their comfort zone. If we stay in our comfort zone, we never grow, we never develop, we never increase our ability and our capacity to perform and produce at a higher level, which means we'll no longer achieve profitability for our companies. Nadella redefined the culture and along with it, the growth at Microsoft. It's now adapting in a growth mindset and learning mindset in its culture is taking it to new heights. As a result, 8 years, it's going back to 2022, 8 years under his leadership, Nadella's, the company has grown from over 800 billion to 2 trillion. 800 billion to 2 trillion. Out of instituting a culture of learning, of curiosity, and of empowerment. So when you look at the culture of Microsoft now, 10 years into Nadella's tenure, it's clearly defined on its website. Microsoft wants to make a difference in the world, and they recognize that this is not possible without their employees and their customers being on board. So what's important to Microsoft. I want to share a little bit about Nadella being positively impacted by Carolyn Dweck's seminal work, The Growth Mindset. What's important to Microsoft? CEO Satya Nadella has emphasized the importance of learning and growth in many different interviews. At Microsoft, they're fostering the teaching that everyone can grow and develop when their potential is nurtured. Let me ask you a question. It's a rhetorical. If tomorrow morning, being a Monday, I came into your place of business, or for those working virtually, I would reach out to all of your employees and say, at this company, do we foster a culture of teaching? Do you believe that you can grow and develop to achieve your full potential? I'm guaranteeing you, honestly, if I were to do a survey, a snap survey anonymously of your people, I'd say probably 75% would say no. And we wonder why employees are disengaged. They don't feel a sense of control or autonomy over their work. They're silent quitting. They're not performing at an optimal level. This is why. This is just a very, very easily defined explanation. Another focus of Microsoft under Nadella's leadership is the customer. Imagine that the customer is king or queen. Microsoft has put their customers at the center of everything they do. By implementing a customer feedback system, they get firsthand data that narrates their users' experience with their products and services. You call it the voice of the customer. By doing this, their users ultimately become a part of the Microsoft team. Customers is part of your product development cycle, and they're able to continue to delight users by providing solutions. But I want to go to something called diversity. In my consulting practice, when I talk to organizations about the achievement of diversity, it's bullshit. Meaning it's the less serious of two options with regard to diversity. The first is surface level, the obvious, the eye test. People look, sound like, have backgrounds similar to our customer base. But that's surface level. It's relatively meaningless. Microsoft takes us deeper. They embrace diversity so that the company is able to see solutions through the eyes of people from various backgrounds and cultures. This allows Microsoft to better serve their customers with solutions that are inclusive, irrespective of race or gender. To adapt not only to the changing technology, and this is why I started this video today, is just the mass proliferation in universal acceptance globally of AI, ChatGPT, and all of this newfound technology. To adapt not only to changing technology, but also the changing ways of business. Microsoft has had to say goodbye to a lot of those stale employee business practices of the past under Steve Balmer to ensure that their employees now feel aligned and committed to the goals of Microsoft. It's a unified Microsoft. Microsoft now encourages unity and collaboration amongst its employees to achieve the best possible outcomes. Employees don't work in silos and they don't compete against each other. And instead, a team spirit is created to ensure everyone comes together. This is really, really important stuff. Okay. So Satya Nadella believes that a CEO, his first and foremost job is to foster a good corporate culture. It's the top of his priority list. And in his book, Hit Refresh, it's an account of how Nadella changed Microsoft's culture. He believes that culture is a crucial component of any corporation. Some people out there say that an overemphasis on culture can be damaging. In 9 Lies About Work, the authors argue that companies might force employees to shed their individuality to conform to and preserve the company culture, ignoring the unique strengths they bring of a company. So, no, with all due respect, this is why culture trumps strategy for breakfast, because culture is how you empower your people, how you make them feel, how they show up, how they buy into your organization's values. So I want to go over the elements of a strong culture. According to Satya Nadella, culture can lead to a more integrated and satisfied team. better overall communication across the organization in all directions, and an improved corporate image inside and outside. This is what's happening now. When you build an amazing reputational brand, or heck, in Microsoft's case, rebuild it, you get this reputation awareness of people in the outside world saying, what's going on in Microsoft these days? And that's what they're focusing on. Values, coherence, analysis, involvement, transparency, employee recognition. All of this is powerful, but I just want to focus on one component or one value construct at Microsoft: speaking and listening to employees. If you, in your organization right now, were really interested in determining the extent that you're living whatever great claims of culture you have, go talk to your employees and ask them. What Nadella did at Microsoft. Nadella solicited honest feedback through his surveys, meetings, made an open show of being open-minded and ready to listen. When he witnessed an employee being aggressive or negative towards others, he stepped in and tried to steer the interaction into a positive outcome. Nadella puts into practice what Marshall Rosenberg described in Nonviolent Communication, a book that Nadella requires all his managers at Microsoft to read. Rosenberg's 4 steps of nonviolent communication that Nadella embraces in his culture at Microsoft. 1, observe one another without evaluating. 2, identify and express your feelings. 3, connect feelings to your underlying needs. And 4, make specific requests of your peers, highlighting what you do want others to do rather than what you don't want them to do. And this is just a really powerful statement about the state of Microsoft today. Okay. So how Microsoft became innovative again, now we're kind of fast forwarding to last year, to 2023. How did Microsoft revive its culture of innovation? For years, the company was written off as playing defense, falling back on its safe product sales and maximizing sales through its Microsoft Windows operating system. But as signaled by its partnership with OpenAI and its challenge to Google's search supremacy, it's taking its newfound culture to a really, really deeper dive. So observers of tech have written off Microsoft as a 20th century phenomenon, fat and happy from its Windows monopoly. The tech giant hadn't had a breakthrough innovation in decades. It was rich enough to be a fast follower, but too big, too bureaucratic to lead in any market. So Jeff Bezos, as he kind of grew Amazon, was famously known for pointing towards, the West Coast and saying, hey, look, let's not be like Microsoft. Let's not get complacent. That's a powerful statement. But February 2023, something happened. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella told reporters that artificial intelligence was creating a new day in search. Microsoft, much maligned Bing search engine, was integrating with OpenAI's ChatGPT technology to generate information directly for users, not just links. And in doing so, it was throwing down the gauntlet at Google, the undisputed champion of search functionality. That's not supposed to happen. Not to Google and not by Microsoft. So that's pretty successful culmination of a decade of a CEO transforming or rebuilding its previously stale culture into something truly competitive and focused with a sense of purpose and clarity and honesty. Don't want to talk about Google right now. It's really a focus on Microsoft. So in Harvard Business Review, which is the source that I'm looking at right now, I just want to kind of go back and attribute. Behnam Tabrizi and his team did some research about what was going on at Microsoft to say what led to this kind of new awakening towards AI at Microsoft. Okay. So multi-year research project to better understand this notion of perpetual innovation. We wanted to know about what was going on at Microsoft. Okay. So I've been working in Silicon Valley since the 1990s, and Microsoft's appearance was somewhat surprising in this kind of rebirth, this spark of innovation. But in taking a closer look, he and his team found that something remarkable had happened at Microsoft, a culture shift to stop being defensive and relying on its past success in the 1980s and going on offense, going after Google. The process began with Nadella taking the reins in 2014. I've mentioned this a number of times. Okay. At the time, Nadella was the head of the company's fast-growing cloud computing division, which I haven't talked about yet, but his background at Microsoft led him also to be uniquely qualified to step up, not just his personality, his traits, his beliefs. So his promotion seemed unlikely to change the lumbering giant's trajectory. But Satya Nadella and the board were tired of seeing the technology world pass by this one-time leader. He announced it was time, Nadella, to rediscover the soul of Microsoft and our reason for being. I mean, that's heady stuff. I mean, CEOs at other organizations have made similar claims with less success. So what was it? What was it about Microsoft and the takeaway? Nadella treated it as an existential moment being at Microsoft in 2014 as CEO, having long accomplished its goal of a PC on every desk and in every home running Microsoft software. If you remember back to the day, 30 some odd years ago, that was its mantra. The company needed a new goal to attract and inspire its many coders and engineers and sustain its profitability or its existence moving forward. With his colleagues, he reoriented the company to empowering every person in the organization and on the planet to achieve more. This reorientation was accompanied by a strategic shift. Instead of protecting assets, defensive measure, Microsoft went on the offense, seeding big investments in existing tech and looking to jump into emerging ones. Okay. First, Microsoft embraced rival operating systems such as Linux and iOS and supported other companies' virtual reality devices. So a changing game plan, become more nimble, become more offensive. Nadella also, when he took the reins 10 years ago, had the gall to elevate talented people from a series of acquisitions. And that's pretty powerful, but it gets to his kind of being a brand ambassador or being somebody who was very much into Carol Dwork's notion of a growth mindset. So Microsoft's culture transformation involves several attributes of startups: an obsession with customers, focus on employees. They sold a great many software products, most of them connected online. Rather than go by sales, Steve Ballmer's old approach, a lagging indicator in fast-moving markets, or even what customers were saying, Nadella had product developers focus on what people were actually using. And so it's just literally transforming the organization and shifting mindset. The company freed up its engineering talent to explore new possibilities. As Nadella wrote in his account of this change, of this transformation, engineers came to Microsoft with big dreams, but it felt like all they really did was deal with upper management, execute taxing processes, and bicker in meetings. So the firm reduced hierarchies, shrink from what I've said before, outdated command control to flatter matrix organizations, and freed up these engineers from most of the institutional admin bureaucratic controls, including rules on contacting people across. Look, you want to kill innovation? Restrict people's ability to seek out others in the organization to work on great projects and to achieve great things. He stripped it all away. Stripped it all away. So that's really what happened at Microsoft. So I'm not going to talk about Google, as I said, maybe at a later date. But I want to play a little video. This is really fascinating to me, and then we'll wrap things up. This is an interview with Kathleen Hogan on how they transform their culture. Kathleen Hogan is Chief People Officer at Microsoft. This is kind of interesting. So let's just play a little of this. First step in transformation. If you identify the need and the passion for transformation, go out, go out and talk to experts. So that's lesson number one to apply in your own business. If this is something you want to do, and this is where people usually engage me to have these conversations, go talk to people who have done this. They understand what it takes. They can give you insight. So first, before you dive in, look out and get some subject matter experts on your team. And that's an important point because it's really need those, well, those two steps need to happen in parallel, right? So your senior leadership team goes off and you have conversations about what you think the culture is and where you want it to be. But more often than not, I'm saying this after 15 years of working with over 200 organizations on this, typically that's where it stops. And then you go to implement phase. And that's a recipe for failure, which is not what happened at Microsoft. Because then you turn the lens outward and you say, let's get, based on our senior leadership teams, what their ideas or beliefs are, let's vet that with how people are really feeling it day in and day out. So you then want to go and you want to talk to your customers, your employees first, then your customers at all levels. You want to talk to your board members. You want to talk to vendors, partners, contractors. You're literally creating a 360 view of what the feelings are of what the current state of the culture at your company is. And that's what Microsoft did. And that is a phenomenally powerful lesson is don't be the organization that I've encountered, unfortunately, far too many of where senior leadership gets together, they have a retreat and offsite, and they have a come to Jesus moment of what they believe is prescient clarity. And they say, this is what the culture is going to be moving forward. And it can't be adapted. It cannot be implemented because your people need to implement it. And so if there's a disconnected dichotomy or a delta between where your senior leadership team thinks you are and where you want to be, and your people are not comfortable that that's actually what it feels like for them, and they're not comfortable that they have what they need to move to where you want to go, it's not going to work. It never has, and it never will. So how did Microsoft change its culture so quickly? And quickly, I understand is a relative term. Some people who are watching me talk about this are saying, well, Nadella's been CEO for 10 years. Well, that's quick because he started implementing things immediately. And so we're seeing now, 10 years into his transformational leadership, the end product of shifting a Goliath in its sector, a Goliath with tens of thousands of employees worldwide. So it has been a quick transformation. How did it happen? 10 years ago, Satya Nadella became CEO. Microsoft culture back during Steve Ballmer's reign, it was holding it back. His leadership was basically holding it back. So I mentioned that Nadella was influenced by Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, the New Psychology of Success, and the dichotomy of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Nadella believes, back then when he took over the reins, and even now, that the hand you are dealt is just a starting point. With the right mindset, passion, and training, people can grow. So I've been involved with a lot of client engagements where they'll talk about the need to change, and their first go-to move, it's right, it's always the case, is layoffs. And it happened to me 20 years in corporate America. When an organization wanted to change or shift or unstick or become profitable, their go-to move was invariably layoffs. And I have to say, I mean, that mindset of Jack Welch, of Neutron Jack, GE, saying there's A's and B's and C's, and you just immediately get rid of the C's. Any individual you hire, that's your responsibility as an organization. That's a very powerful employee-employer contract. And rather than terminate, I would say I'm a passionate advocate for rethink your strategy of layoffs. There should never be a layoff unless it's an absolute specific case based on poor performance that cannot be reconciled and or some kind of toxic contribution to a negative culture. Hire slowly, terminate quickly. And that's on the organization as far as a responsibility. So Nadella gives people the space to share their voice and their experiences. More importantly, he suggests that every employee at Microsoft ask themselves the following two questions. And here we go. Here's the money quote. I'm glad you stayed with me till the end. When during each day did I have a fixed mindset, something that I was locked into, that was in my little box of prior experience and ways of doing things versus where and when did I experience a growth mindset? The danger to you, your business, through your people, the danger of a fixed mindset is it reinforces the tendency to do what the individual and thus the organization has always done. And it's the classic definition of insanity. We know to do the same thing and expect a different outcome. And according to Nadella and a growth mindset, empowering your people is a critical, I say, the most important aspect of achieving change. And so what I mean by that is this. In any organization, yours specifically, you're going to come to the point where you're going to identify that your people are the only lasting competitive advantage you have. What do I mean by that? Strategy doesn't work if you don't have the people or the culture to implement it. It just won't. I don't care how good your strategy is, it's going to fail. Operational efficiency, technology, transformation, the way things are going in terms of operational efficiency. Every organization, small, mid-sized, or large, they have access to the same operational tools. It's no longer a differentiator. It's a lowest common denominator that sets you up for performance. Your people are the only lever that you can pull to ever achieve lasting competitive advantage or re-engage and reposition yourself as Microsoft did for success. So I hope you found today's video instructive. If you liked the video, come back again. Check out all the videos I'm creating. I'm excited to say we now have over 400. Please smash the like button, share this video with anybody you think can benefit from it, and certainly subscribe to the channel. Keep coming back. Please keep exploring my YouTube channel. And by the way, drop me a comment if you liked or didn't like the video, and let me know what other organizations or topics you'd love to see covered here in the future. Thanks. Have a great day.